You're looking at the Green Dome in Medina. It's one of the most recognizable symbols in the entire Islamic world, and a place millions of people visit every single year. But what if I told you that this incredible monumental site all started in a space no bigger than a simple bedroom? Seriously, let's dig into that amazing transformation.
And that's really the big question here, isn't it? It's not just a story about buildings or history. It's about how faith and time can take a private, humble little spot and give it a meaning that echoes all around the world. To really get it, we need to start with what we see today.
So our journey has to begin with the most famous feature of the whole building, that unmistakable green dome. It's so much more than just a beautiful piece of architecture. It's a landmark with a very, very specific job.
Okay, so let's get our bearings. We're in the city of Medina in Saudi Arabia. This whole giant complex is Al-Masjid al-Nabawi, which translates to the Prophet's Mosque. And this place is absolutely massive, one of the largest mosques on the planet. And somewhere, deep inside all of that, is the exact spot we're looking for.
And this is the whole point of the dome. It's not just for decoration. It's basically a giant signpost. I mean, in a mosque this enormous, you need a guide, right? Well, the green dome is kind of like a giant pin on a map, pointing down from the sky, telling everyone, right here, this is the sacred spot. So the dome tells us where to look. Now let's head underneath it to really understand what it is that it's protecting. Directly below that green dome is something called the Sacred Chamber. In Arabic, it's known as the Rauda Mubarak, which means the Blessed Garden. I mean, that name alone gives you a hint of just how spiritually important this place is. This small space is the absolute heart of the entire complex. And, of course, this leads us to the most important question of all. The dome marks the chamber, but what makes the chamber so sacred? Who is actually in there? The answer lies with three of the most central, foundational figures in all of Islamic history. And this is a really crucial point. We're not talking about just one grave here. There are three individuals laid to rest inside this chamber. And here they are. This really shows you the immense historical weight of this one spot. First, you have the Prophet Muhammad himself. He's joined by his closest companion, Abu Bakr al-Siddiq, who was the first caliph. And then there's Omar ibn al-Khattab, the second caliph. These were the leaders who guided the entire community right after the Prophet. The fact that they're so close in death just perfectly reflects how important they were to each other in life. So, now we know who is buried here. But this takes us right back to our original question. How on earth did this specific place become their final resting spot? And the answer is actually incredibly humble. This is the key to the whole story. This wasn't some pre-planned grand tomb. The Prophet was buried in the very room where he passed away. And that room was a private chamber inside the simple home of his wife, Aisha. It all started as an act of love in a very personal space. And just look at that transformation. This really puts it all into perspective. What started as a private domestic space, just a simple home, is now contained within one of the largest and most significant mosques on the entire planet. It's just amazing. So how exactly does a private house get absorbed into a giant mosque? Well, it happens slowly, over hundreds of years. See, in the very beginning, the Prophet's mosque was a much simpler building, and the homes of his wives were right next door. But as the community grew and grew, the mosque needed to expand. And with each expansion, the new structure was built around Aisha's home, respectfully enclosing it, and making sure that sacred burial chamber stayed right at the very heart of the new, much larger mosque. Okay, so let's quickly recap the three big takeaways here. First, that iconic green dome isn't just for show, it's a marker for the sacred chamber right below it. Second, that chamber contains the graves of not one, but three of Islam's most foundational figures, the Prophet Muhammad, Abu Bakr, and Umar. And finally, and maybe the most incredible fact of all, this global center for pilgrimage began its life as the simple, private home of the Prophet's wife, Aisha. And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. This whole story is just a powerful reminder of how history, faith, and memory can transform a completely ordinary personal space into a place with extraordinary global significance. It really shows you how something that begins in a simple room can end up touching the entire world.